By 3:30 that Friday afternoon, I was already itching for the weekend to start. At 48 years old, I was gearing up for what I believed would be one of the happiest days of my life. Marrying the woman I thought was the most gorgeous in the world. Emma, always one to hold on to old traditions, had stayed at a friend's place the night before. She said it was bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the wedding. I was on my way to my home office to tie up some last-minute wedding plans when I heard the front door open. That unmistakable sound of her key in the lock stopped me in my tracks. "Forget something, scatterbrain?" I called out with a chuckle as I headed downstairs. But when I reached the bottom step, my smile vanished. I froze. Standing there, framed by the doorway, was a woman with a radiant Mediterranean tan, draped in a sharp, pricey-looking suit. She was smiling wide as she stepped toward me. "Adam, I'm back," she said, her voice brimming with confidence as she moved closer. I instinctively turned my cheek to dodge the kiss she leaned in to plant and held up a hand to stop her in her tracks. "What the hell are you doing here?" I snapped. Her face didn't flinch. "Adam, don't talk to your wife like that." "This is my house," she replied, her tone as solid as steel. I clenched my jaw, keeping my voice cold. "First off, you're not my wife. And second, this isn't your house." Without waiting for her reply, I turned on my heel and walked into the lounge. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the phone, but I kept my voice steady. "This is Adam Carter," I said, speaking into the receiver. "She's back, my ex-wife, Sophia." "Yes, she's here right now. Send someone over immediately." Sophia's confident veneer cracked just a little as she asked, "Who were you talking to?" There was a faint edge of panic in her voice. I didn't mince words. "Detective Inspector Reed, from the local police," I answered evenly. "But I haven't done anything wrong," she protested, her voice rising slightly. "Maybe not," I said with a shrug, "but they think you have." I wasted no time calling my son, Liam, to tell him what was happening. "Why don't you sit down, Sophia?" I suggested, gesturing to the nearest chair. "Some people want to have a word with you." It had been 6 long years since I'd last laid eyes on Sophia. To be honest, it felt like even longer. When she left, she didn't say goodbye, just left a note with her bank cards, saying she was off to pursue her true destiny and asking me not to follow her. The irony was, we'd been high school sweethearts. Back then, I'd half-joked that I'd be a millionaire by the time I hit 30. She always said she'd wait for her millionaire. After high school, I went to Manchester University to study electronics. I met plenty of girls, but none of them were Sophia. She stuck by me through those years, spending every break together when I wasn't working. By the time I finished my finals, she dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. I thought we'd been careful, but accidents happen. We got married right after that, and I graduated with first-class honors. Instead of taking a flashy corporate job, I chose a small electronics company in Somerset. Harper Electronics wasn't glamorous, but the owner, John, seemed like a genuine guy who cared about his employees. He helped us settle into the area and even covered our rent while I got on my feet. My early paychecks went straight into furnishing our little flat and preparing for Liam's arrival. Sophia, of course, bounced back from childbirth with a figure that looked even better than before, her chestnut hair and striking blue eyes turning heads wherever we went. It didn't take long before our cozy apartment started to feel too small. John stepped in again, convincing me that renting was a waste and that buying a house was the way forward. I didn't have enough for a full deposit, so John lent me the rest. It wasn't purely out of kindness. He knew owning a home would tie me to the area. As the years passed, things got a bit easier. I wanted more kids, but Sophia didn't seem too interested. My career took an unexpected turn when the chief designer retired. John decided to merge design and development into one department, and to my surprise, he handed me the reins. No interviews, no applications, just a straight promotion. "Adam, meet your new boss," he joked, pointing to my reflection in the mirror. The new role came with a hefty pay bump. Knowing Sophia's tendency to spend, I set up a savings account where 10% of my salary went automatically. She never noticed, just saw a little extra in the budget and spent it accordingly. By 30, we had a nice house in the countryside, 2 cars, and a solid lifestyle. But Sophia was never one to let me rest on my laurels. "You always said you'd be a millionaire by now," she reminded me one day, her tone laced with disappointment. She'd never realized it had been a joke. Our only serious arguments revolved around Liam. Sophia insisted he go to a private school, but I thought the local public school was fine. Maybe if you'd gone to private school, you'd be a millionaire now instead of some guy working for a small electronics firm, she jabbed one evening. Her words stung, but I kept my cool. That firm is what lets us have this conversation, Sophia. Without it, we wouldn't even be able to afford the fees, I replied. In the end, Sophia got her way. Liam started at Kingswood, and we shelled out $6,000 a year. The tuition didn't bother me as much as the socializing. Sophia loved mingling with the wealthy parents, stockbrokers, bankers, investment gurus, but I couldn't stand them. I bit my tongue at their dinner parties while Sophia fawned over their wealth and status. That's when things started to unravel. Sophia wanted their lifestyle, and I just wanted to keep us grounded. So, when she walked back through that door after 6 years, it wasn't just confusion I felt, it was anger. You really dug up my garden? Sophia asked incredulously, snapping me back to the present. Yes, madam, Detective Inspector Reed replied coolly. Now, do you have any identification? Sophia handed over her passport, and the inspector checked it carefully while WPC Cavendish noted her details. Mrs. Carter, where have you been for the past 6 years? Reed asked. Can't this wait? I'll come to the station later, Sophia pleaded. Reed shook his head. We can take you now, but your husband deserves some answers. Sophia turned to me. Adam, I know you're upset I left, but this isn't helping. I'm not angry you left, I replied sharply. I'm angry you came back today. My voice was louder than I intended, and I sank into a chair by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. We've been searching for you, Mrs. Carter, Reed pressed. Where have you been? I didn't know anyone was looking, Sophia said. I told Adam not to. He didn't. We did. Now, where were you? Sophia hesitated. France, Spain, Barbados, then back to Spain before coming here. This isn't your home, I interjected, but Reed raised his hand to silence me. Mrs. Carter, you weren't on any passenger lists. How did you leave? A friend flew me privately, from Farnborough to Nice, Sophia replied. I tuned out, lost in memories. The cracks in our marriage began when Liam started at Kingswood. Sophia became enamored with the wealthy parents' lifestyle, homes in Bath, vacations in the south of France, while I wanted to focus on paying off the mortgage and saving. We argued often, but always reconciled by bedtime, until one dinner party changed everything. At that party, James, a hedge fund manager and the father of Liam's friend, drunkenly boasted about a scheme to buy a small GPS company in Farnborough. The owner doesn't know the land's value as residential property, he said smugly. We'll buy him out, transfer the land to a holding company, bleed the factory dry with rent and fees, then evict them and sell the land for millions. And the workers? I asked coldly. Casualties of war, he replied. All for your bonus, you parasite, I snapped. James swung at me, missed, and toppled into a table, smashing plates and covering himself in cake. Sophia stormed in at the commotion, and I told her we were leaving. That was my last dinner party. Sophia, however, continued attending without me, sometimes with other men. She swore nothing was happening, but I had my doubts. The following Monday, I told John Harper about James's plan. John and I worked to save the company. He bought it, sold off excess land, and gave the owner a fair price. A month later, James's fury boiled over when Sophia came home angry. You embarrassed me and ruined James's plan, she shouted. It's his bonus versus 100 jobs. No contest, I replied. You always make things difficult. I try to make friends, and you insult them, she snapped. He's destroying jobs like our fathers had. Have you forgotten where you came from? I don't want to go back, she admitted, her voice trembling. That was when I realized Sophia was ashamed of me. Our relationship deteriorated. She spent more time in Bath on school committees and fundraising while I buried myself in work. We lived separate lives, sharing only a bed by the time Liam went to university. When Sophia left without warning, all I felt was relief. Mrs. Carter, the search for you was in all the papers. Your husband was even arrested, Reed said, snapping me back to the present. Sophia's eyes widened. They arrested you? Adam, I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would come to that. I left a note. Yes, Sophia, I replied bitterly, but it wasn't signed. No one believed it. It was in the newspapers, even foreign media, Reed added. You didn't see any of it? I was abroad and didn't speak the language, Sophia explained. I only watch TV in French. I had no idea. And you didn't care, I said, my voice dripping with resentment. You're right, Adam. I didn't care. We hadn't been close for years, and I didn't want to cause you trouble, she admitted quietly. At that moment, WPC Cavendish returned, holding a paper. Mrs. Carter, is that your Range Rover parked outside? Yes, why? Sophia asked, wary. The Spanish police are looking for it and for you. In connection to a death in Malaga, Cavendish said. Sophia's face paled. It was a heart attack in the bathroom. That wasn't my fault. They're upset you left while the case was still open, Cavendish replied. Sophia looked at me, her voice soft. You were right, Adam. I needed to get away from those people. They just use people, Sophia said softly, her bravado finally cracking. Reed stood and collected his things. Okay, Sophia, we're done here. We'd like you to come to the station to give a statement, but as far as I'm concerned, the case is closed. I walked him to the door, and he offered his hand. Thank you, Mr. Carter, and good luck. Thank you, Inspector. Goodbye, I replied, shaking his hand. Relief washed over me as I watched them leave. Despite everything, I missed Sophia. The house felt hollow, even without the arguments. At least she had left her bank cards and Minnie behind, so I didn't have to worry about our money. The next day, I removed her name from our accounts and surrendered her credit cards. I honored her wish not to report her missing. 10 days later, Liam called, distraught, and filed a missing person report. That's when I first met Inspector Reed. Do you have any idea where your wife might be, or who she left with? Reed asked. I don't know, and I don't care, I replied bluntly. He pressed for details about our relationship, and I told him the truth. We were two people sharing a house, nothing more. Tell the truth and shame the devil, my mother always said. But my honesty didn't help. Within 2 days, the press was camped on my lawn, shouting questions every time I left for work. Reed came to my office during a meeting with John Harper. Mr. Carter, we have a warrant to search your house and car. I need you to accompany me. I handed over my keys. The car's in the parking lot. Take it. But Mr. Harper and I have business to discuss. To my shock, Reed pulled out handcuffs. Adam Carter, you're under arrest for the homicide of Sophia Carter. He recited my rights as he cuffed me and led me out. John shouted, I'll call the company lawyer. Don't say anything until he arrives. I was held at the station for 2 days, enduring endless interviews. Following John's advice, I refused to answer questions without my solicitor. With no evidence, I was released, but not before Reed tried to extend my detainment. My solicitor challenged him to present any proof of a crime. He couldn't. As I walked out, the paparazzi were waiting, snapping pictures and shouting questions. The next day, tabloids ran the headline "Getting Away with Homicide." At home, I found the house and garden cordoned off. The front door was ajar, the garden gate was broken, and diggers had torn up the lawn. I took photos of the wreckage before gathering my belongings under a policeman's watchful eye. The house was a disaster. Carpets ripped up, rooms ransacked. I packed a bag and checked into a hotel. The following morning at work, my colleagues greeted me with applause, and my secretary, Sally, welcomed me back with a kiss on the cheek. Even John stopped by. Good to see you, Adam. How are you holding up? I'm fine, but my house is a wreck, I replied, showing him the photos. Print those for me. We'll get the lawyers involved. You deserve compensation. Where are you staying? He asked. In a hotel for now, but I'll find a flat soon, I said. No need, John insisted. Wendy and I have plenty of room. Stay with us until we sort this out. Remember, you've got friends here. Later, Sally also offered help. My Aunt Olivia takes in lodgers and has space. Are you sure she'd be okay hosting a homicide suspect? I joked. You're no executioner, she laughed. I'll call her this afternoon. That evening, I visited Olivia Sutton. In her early 50s, but looking closer to 40, Olivia had piercing blue eyes and shoulder-length dark hair. Her home was charming, and the spacious double room convinced me to stay. Before moving in, I felt it was only fair to tell her everything. Sally told me. It's disgusting how they treated you, Olivia said, her voice full of sympathy. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. Olivia served me breakfast daily and encouraged me to enjoy the house. This is a big place, Mr. Carter. I get lonely. Just having someone else here is nice, she said warmly. Staying with Olivia turned out to be far better than living with Sophia, except for the lack of intimacy, which resolved itself one night. Olivia panicked over a leaking toilet, so I turned off the water, bought a new valve, and fixed it. Her gratitude came with a hug that lingered, and before I knew it, she invited me to her bed. We undressed, and what followed was passionate and wild. Later, I fetched wine, and we had another round before she drifted off to sleep. As I watched her, I couldn't help but wonder how my life had brought me here. The next morning, everything seemed normal again. That evening, I invited Olivia to dinner, but she was hesitant. "Adam, last night was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened," she said apologetically. "But it did, and it was good, wasn't it?" I replied, "Yes, but it was wrong. You're still married, and I have someone," she admitted. "You have someone? Then why last night?" I asked, confused. "He's old-fashioned and won't sleep with me until we're married. But it's been so long since I felt a real man inside me. I'm sorry, Adam. It must never happen again." "Olivia, if a man has the chance to make love to you and turns it down, I doubt his sanity," I said, trying to understand. "Regardless, I've made a commitment, and I'll marry him." "Last night must never happen again," Olivia said firmly. "I'll respect your wishes," I promised. And I did, though during my 3 months with her, there were 2 more passionate nights, each followed by her guilt and insistence it couldn't happen again. Meanwhile, the police occupied my house for over a month, leaving it in disarray. Repairs took nearly 2 more months, and I had to replace furniture and redo the garden. When Sophia saw the changes, she commented, "Looks like you haven't been celibate while I've been away." "What do you mean?" I asked, taken aback. "This decor isn't your style." "Definitely a woman's touch," she said. "I hired a designer," I explained. "After the police wrecked the place, I either had to refurbish or sell. Since the mortgage is paid off, I chose to refurbish." "Was it really that bad?" she asked, her concern surprising me. "I can show you pictures. They even checked under the concrete floor for you." Her voice softened. "I'm so sorry. I never imagined anything like that." "It's all in the past now. We're divorced and that's what matters," I replied, eager to move on. "How can we be divorced without me knowing?" "I never agreed to that," she said, confused. "You didn't have to. You deserted me," I said. "When I moved back, I decided to divorce Sophia once and for all." My solicitor suggested waiting to prove her abandonment. 2 months later, he asked if I wanted to claim all joint assets or create a trust fund for her. "I'll take the long route," I replied. "I'm in no rush." Inspector Reed found out about the divorce and brought me in for another interview, suspecting a motive. The press, ever present, hounded me relentlessly. Despite the scrutiny, the police found no evidence that Sophia hadn't left willingly. Feeling lonely, I redesigned the garden and joined dating sites. While I had no problem finding casual relationships, most women asked if my wife might return, implying they thought I'd killed her. Frustrated, I stumbled upon a profile of an 18-year-old named Emma. She was upfront. She sought financial help in exchange for exclusivity. Convinced I could protect her from predators, I contacted her. We met at a university theater bar. Emma, about 5 feet 6 inches with long mousy brown hair, brought her friend Chloe, a petite blonde. Chloe took my picture as I introduced myself. "Can I get you ladies a drink?" I asked. Emma wanted coffee. Chloe, water. Afterward, Emma seemed more at ease. "Well, you've passed the physical," she said with a smile. "I could do with you." "I still can't believe I'm here," I admitted. Chloe's icy glares pierced through me. "Are you married, Adam?" "I can be discreet," Emma asked. "I'm not worried about my wife. I'm worried about you. Are you sure you want this?" I asked. Emma bristled. "Did you come here to talk me out of it?" She began to stand, but I held her hands. "Please sit. I just wanted to be sure. Now, what do you want from me?" Emma placed an invoice on the table, pound 360 for her accommodation. I smiled, thinking Sophia would have spent that much on shoes. I wrote a check for the full amount, payable to the University Estates Department. Emma was stunned. "The full amount? You'd do that for me?" "Yes, and I'll cover next term too, on one condition. Cancel your ad and see no one else," I said. "Of course," she agreed. "Good. I'll cover your rent, food, books, and next year's tuition. In return, focus on your studies and be available for social events," I said. "Social events? Never heard it called that," Chloe muttered. Emma, do we have a deal? I asked. Yes, we do, she replied. Great. May I take you both to dinner? I offered. I'm not part of this deal. I'm just here for Emma's protection, Chloe said. I appreciate that, which is why I'd like you to come. Consider it a thank you, I replied. We walked to my Skoda, surprising them. Can you afford this? Emma asked, puzzled. I wouldn't have offered if I couldn't. I live according to my needs, not my means. This car is reliable and lets me save for more important things. And I'm important? Emma said, smiling. I hope so. My wife and son cost more than I'll spend on you, so don't worry, I reassured her. We had a pleasant dinner at an Italian restaurant in Bath. Emma talked about her family and her father's dislike of debt. He thought she worked at a campus bar and had no idea what she was really doing. At the end of the evening, we exchanged numbers, and I dropped them off. The next day, I hired a private investigator to look into Emma, not because I distrusted her, but because I wanted to be sure. Despite my best efforts to keep things casual with Emma, I found myself growing more attached. We spent 2 evenings a week together at first, but our time together quickly became the highlight of my week. Whether we went out for dinner or simply strolled around town, there was an ease in her company I hadn't felt in years. She filled a quiet emptiness I hadn't even realized was there. One Saturday, I decided to treat her to a full day out. We went shopping for clothes, stopping at boutiques where she tried on dress after dress, laughing as I gave my honest opinions. Afterward, I took her to a favorite restaurant and then a nightclub to dance the night away. It was a carefree, almost giddy experience that reminded me of what it felt like to be alive. That night, I'd booked us separate hotel rooms, though I wondered if it was the right call. As we walked down the hallway, Emma slipped her arm through mine, leaning her head on my shoulder. Outside her door, I turned to kiss her cheek, but she shifted, and our lips met. It wasn't a casual kiss. It was full of passion, leaving no doubt about her feelings. We need to talk, she said softly, looking up at me. We could, I replied, but I'd prefer to talk in my room. No, she said with a small smile. We'll talk here. She opened the door, took my hand, and led me inside. Once inside, she guided me to the bed and went to the minibar. She poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one before sitting beside me. Adam, I appreciate everything you've done for me. You've been generous, kind, and respectful. But we had an arrangement, didn't we? We do, I said, unsure where this was going. And I've kept my side of it, haven't I? Sort of, she said, her tone playful but firm. You cover my expenses, and I'm exclusively yours. But you haven't let me keep my side of the deal. I frowned, confused. What do you mean? She looked directly at me. You take me out in beautiful dresses you buy for me. I know you're attracted to me, so why treat me like your daughter instead of your girlfriend? As she spoke, she unzipped her dress and let it fall to the floor, revealing lingerie that accentuated every curve. You don't have to hold back. I'm not some fragile flower. I hesitated, struggling to find the right words. I'm not used to this arrangement, I admitted. I've been trying to protect us both. I don't want you to feel like a hooker. She reached out and held my hand. I don't feel that way. I'm in control of this, Adam. If you're unhappy, we can end it now. I sighed, voicing the real fear I'd been avoiding. I'm in my 40s, and you're 19. What happens if you meet someone your age and fall for him? Emma climbed onto my lap, her face close to mine. Her fingers brushed against my cheek as she said firmly, I don't like boys my age. I want someone like you. I enjoy being with you, Adam, and I want you to ravage me. Her words dissolved my hesitation, and I gave in. We undressed each other slowly, every moment charged with intensity. Our lovemaking was passionate and raw, a connection I hadn't experienced in years. Afterward, as we lay wrapped in each other's arms, I was struck by the contrast between her youthful energy and my aging body. Want to share a shower? She asked, a playful grin on her face. Try to keep me out, I replied, following her to the bathroom. We kissed under the warm spray, the intimacy feeling both new and familiar. Back on the bed, we snuggled, her head resting on my chest. Did you really choose me? I asked, my voice quiet. Of course, she replied without hesitation. You weren't the first man who approached me, but you stood out. You didn't treat me like a transaction. You wanted to take care of me. Her words stirred something tender in me. No more separate rooms, I said, kissing her forehead. Agreed, she replied, smiling as she nestled closer. The weekend felt transformative. By Monday, I was determined to ensure everything she told me was true. I called the private investigator to follow up, and his report confirmed Emma's story. She had no romantic interests at university, and some even speculated she and Chloe were a couple. Relieved, I paid the bill and closed the case. Feeling inspired, I decided to focus on self-improvement. I asked Sally to book me an appointment with the company's personal trainer. Why the sudden interest in fitness? She teased, raising an eyebrow. This old body needs some work, I joked. You found someone, haven't you? She asked, grinning. I'm so happy for you. Her enthusiasm caught me off guard, and she kissed me impulsively on the cheek. Blushing, she quickly apologized. Let's keep this between us for now, I said cautiously. We'll see how things go. Any woman who lets you go is either mad or stupid, Sally said with a smirk. If I didn't love my husband, I'd have made a move myself. At work, things were thriving. Our focus on digital signal processing and licensing designs had become far more profitable than manufacturing, and Harper Electronics was reaching new heights. John, now in his 60s, was starting to ease back. After a particularly grueling training session, he visited my office. You look like you've run a marathon, he said, chuckling. 3 miles on the treadmill, I replied. What's up? Your mileage expenses are ridiculous. It's cheaper to give you a company car. Pick something nice. No Skodas, he said. What's wrong with Skodas? Great value for money, I countered. They don't scream success. Get a Merc, Jag, or Beamer. And you'll need it. You're acting CEO while Wendy and I go on a world cruise after Christmas. We'll discuss the future when I return. For now, pick something under 80,000 pounds. It took me 2 weeks to choose a car, and I kept the news from Emma. By now, we were spending 4 nights a week together, and she often stayed over. What had started as an arrangement was becoming something much deeper, and I couldn't deny how much I enjoyed having her in my life. The night I pulled up in my new Jaguar XK, Emma didn't recognize me until I stepped out. Does this show I can support you? I teased. You silly man, you didn't get this to impress me, did you? She laughed. No, it's a company car. My boss insisted, I clarified. Your boss must think a lot of you, she said, clearly impressed. I think he does. Now, where do you want to go tonight? I asked, smiling. Can't we just go to your place and watch TV? I'm happy just being with you, she said, and I realized how comfortable we'd become together. For the first time in years, I felt truly happy, but it didn't last. One evening, Emma wasn't at our usual meeting spot. I checked her room at the theater bar, but she was nowhere to be found. Dejected, I returned to my car, where Chloe was waiting. Chloe? Where is Emma? Is she okay? I asked, worried. She slapped me hard and yelled, Why couldn't you be honest? If Emma knew who you really were, she wouldn't be heartbroken. I've been honest. I'm Adam Carter, I said, showing her my driver's license. I know you're Adam Carter, the man who got away with homicide. Where's your wife? She demanded. I don't know. She left me, I replied sharply. Then why can't anyone find her? Chloe pressed. A reporter wanted to interview Emma for a story about women attracted to criminals. He showed her all the articles about you. Furious, I snapped. Just because Sophia disappeared doesn't mean I can't have a life. I want Emma in it. I drove home and called Emma repeatedly, but her phone was off. I texted, It's not true. Sophia left me. Nobody killed her. Please talk to me. I barely slept that night, and the next day at work, I was still angry. Sally, get Guy Pearson from the company lawyers on the phone. I instructed curtly. A few minutes later, Sally patched him through. Guy, I'm still dealing with issues from the police and the press over my wife's disappearance. I need you to go after them, especially the Post. I'll start immediately, Guy assured me. The next morning, reporters were outside my house. Is it true you're suing the police? One shouted. Yes, I replied simply. Don't they have a responsibility to investigate your wife's disappearance? Another asked. Of course, but they need to get their facts right. They had no right to label my house a crime scene without evidence of a crime, I said firmly. Are you claiming £1 million from the Post? Someone else shouted. I don't know the amount. My solicitor is handling it, I replied. What have they done to deserve that? A reporter asked. They've labeled me a criminal without evidence. If the Post has proof my wife is dead, I'd love to see it. Instead, they've interfered in my private life and ruined potential relationships. What's the price of that? I said before driving off. That night, I saw TV coverage of the lawsuit, which framed me positively. My interview was followed by a segment on press intrusion featuring others whose lives had been ruined. A few days later, I received an out-of-court settlement offer, but without an apology or admission of liability, I refused it. The best surprise came one cold evening when I got home. Emma was waiting for me outside. I hugged her tightly and brought her inside, where I made coffee. She looked nervous. "I'm sorry, Adam. I don't know what to say," she began. "Let me start," I said. I told her everything, about Sophia, the press, and the investigation. By the time I finished, my coffee was cold, and Emma had tears in her eyes. She leaned into my chest and sobbed. "I should have talked to you," she said. "That reporter frightened me. He said horrible things and showed me those stories. When I saw you on TV, I realized I'd been a fool. Chloe said you were heartbroken," I mentioned gently. "I was. I like you so much, Adam. It's not just the lovemaking, it's everything. I want to be with you, but I let my fear take over," she admitted. I hugged her tightly. After dinner, she seemed brighter, and we sat together on the couch. Before bed, she asked, "Adam, I know I have no right to ask this, but would you come home with me for Christmas? I want you to meet my parents, especially my dad." "I'd like that," I said, smiling. We went to bed, holding each other and making love slowly, tenderly. For the first time, I felt at peace. The next morning, Emma teased, "The last 6 years have been kind to you, Adam." "Sorry, what was that?" I asked. "You look younger and fitter than when we met," she said, grinning. "I decided to get in shape, dancing and cycling," I explained. "You? Dancing and cycling? Why?" "I can't help being an old dad, but I don't have to be a fat old dad," I joked. "You plan on having more kids at your age?" she teased. "I'm 48, not 84. Charlie Chaplin had kids at 82, I retorted. "But he had a young wife," she laughed. "Well, so do I said with a wink. "Are you thinking of getting a young wife?" Emma teased, raising an eyebrow. "Oh my God, Adam, you didn't get a Russian bride, did you?" Her playful smirk made it hard to be annoyed. "You still haven't learned when to stop joking, have you?" I began to respond, but the doorbell interrupted. It was Liam. "Hi, Dad. Is she still here?" Liam asked as I let him in. "Yes, she's here," I replied. He stepped inside and turned to his mother. "Liam, how are you, darling?" Sophia asked, her voice soft, almost motherly. "Not that you care," he shot back. "You disappeared for 6 years and think everything's just the same? People move on, Mom. But I always loved you," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "Just not enough to let me know you were alive," Sophia replied, clearly hurt. "What makes you think I wanted to?" I added, unable to resist. "So where have you been, mother dear?" Liam asked sarcastically. "She's been running a Spanish bordello." "Madam Sophia," I said, my sarcasm earning me a glare from both of them. Realizing I wasn't helping, I left them to work things out and went to find Emma. Despite this family drama, Emma and I quickly moved past our earlier bumps, and she moved into my house, settling into Liam's old room. We soon headed to Doncaster to spend Christmas with her parents, driving through hours of bad weather and greasy food stops. By evening, we reached our hotel. "What are we doing here?" Emma asked as we checked in. "My parents will be upset if we don't stay with them." "I booked a room as insurance," I explained. "Your parents will be happy to see you, but they may not feel the same about me." She smiled, shaking her head. "They'll love you, but maybe a little insurance isn't a bad idea." After unpacking, we drove to Emma's parents' house, a modest semi-detached home on the edge of town. Her father, Michael, greeted us at the door, a friendly man in his 60s with thinning gray hair. "Dad, how are you?" Emma exclaimed, hugging him. "I'm fine, darling. And you must be Adam. Come in. Let me get a look at you," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "You're welcome here, my boy. Emma's told me a lot about you. Come meet the wife." Emma's mother, Karen, was less enthusiastic. Around my age, with shoulder-length blonde hair, she looked past Emma and focused on me. "Who's this?" she asked bluntly. "Mom, this is Adam. He's a friend. And we're sharing a house, Emma introduced me. Sharing a house or sharing a bed? Karen asked sharply. Emma has her own room, Mrs. Collins, I said, offering my hand. She ignored it, her frosty demeanor clear. Emma, sensing my discomfort, rested her head on my shoulder. Mom, can we offer Adam a drink? She asked. Michael jumped in. How about coffee? I'd love one. Thank you, I said, relieved by his kindness. As we chatted, Michael's warmth made me feel at ease, but Karen's coldness lingered. She didn't warm to me, no matter how hard I tried. Still, the visit went well enough, and Christmas was pleasant, until a TV news program reviewing the year changed everything. This was the month when businessman Adam Carter took his fight for justice to the courts, the reporter said. Karen froze, her hand covering her mouth. Oh my God, you're him, aren't you? Adam Carter, the man who got away with crime. No, Karen, I corrected, trying to stay calm. I'm Adam Carter, the man whose wife left him. The Post says you killed her. There's no smoke without fire, she insisted, horrified. My daughter is dating a criminal. Karen, Adam's our guest, Michael said firmly. I'm proud to live in a country where a man is innocent until proven guilty. The police have no evidence, and neither does the press. You knew and didn't tell me? I've had a criminal under my roof. Karen shouted. Technically, it's my roof, and I'm happy to have Adam here, Michael replied, standing his ground. I stood up, not wanting to make things worse. Michael, I'm sorry. My presence is causing problems. I'll get my things, I said quietly. Emma looked distraught as I left the room. When I returned with my bag, Karen was still fuming, and Michael was trying to reason with her. Emma grabbed her coat and stood by my side. I'm sorry, Mom. If Adam isn't welcome, neither am I, she said, her voice trembling. Michael apologized for his wife's behavior and promised to call if things calmed down. Emma and I left, returning to the hotel. That night, we shared some of the most passionate lovemaking we'd ever had, as if to erase the tension of the day. The next day, I invited Michael and Karen to dinner, but only Michael came. That became the pattern. Michael and I grew close, and he even encouraged Emma to join me on my annual skiing holiday. 2 weeks in Closters, staying at a client's lodge, were heavenly. Emma learned to ski quickly, ignoring the instructors and sticking by my side. Our evenings by the fire were quiet and intimate. One day, the press arrived, covering a story about Charles and the young princes. Emma didn't understand why I found it amusing until I explained it reminded me of Sophia's dream of mingling with the jet set. Sophia's aspirations felt laughably distant now. When John and Wendy returned from their cruise, I shared my success in entertaining clients during their absence. Emma had joined me as my hostess, charming clients with her youthful looks and business savvy. John was impressed. How'd you meet her? He asked over dinner. On a scouting trip to the university, I said, my first lie to John. She acts mature for her age. How old is she? 20, I replied casually. And you're what? 48? The age gap doesn't cause problems? No, John. I have more in common with Emma than I ever did with Sophia, I said honestly. Well, you look happy, Adam, John noted. I am. It may not last, but for now, I'm happy, I admitted. John then outlined his plans. Our production side doesn't bring in much. Your design and development division is the cash cow. Your latest development earns more in a week than production does in a year. So, do you want to close production? Expanding manufacturing doesn't make sense, John said. Investing in design and development does. What's the biggest growth area? I asked. Digital signal processing. We're close to launching a marketable design, and I want you to expand that division, especially in DSP chips, John explained. I'll focus on manufacturing and cut my schedule to 3 days a week. There's a salary increase in it for you. On the way home in the taxi, Emma leaned against me, her head resting on my shoulder and her hands lightly gripping my arm. Did I hear that correctly? Was my man just asked to take over most of the business? She asked, clearly surprised. If by your man you mean me, then yes, I replied with a grin. That's amazing. You must be really good at what you do, she said, looking up at me with pride. I'm good at some things, I teased, pulling her closer for a kiss. After we broke apart, she smiled. Some things go without saying, she whispered. That night, as always after entertaining clients, our lovemaking was electric. As we lay together, she looked at me with pride. I am so proud of you, she said softly, filling me with a surge of confidence I hadn't felt in years. Life was falling into place. The police fully compensated me for the damage to my home and reputation, and the Post grudgingly paid £500,000 with a reluctant apology. Emma suggested we use the money to establish the Adam Carter Bursary for promising engineering students. It was a generous idea, and I quickly agreed. With Emma living with me, I covered her tuition fees, a constant reminder of the unique arrangement that had brought us together. By spring, I was in the best shape of my life. My exercise regime had helped me shed weight and build a fitter physique, a transformation even Sally, my PA, noticed. "I'll say one thing for that young lady of yours," Sally remarked. "She's good for you." "What do you mean?" I asked, curious. "Look at you. You look 10 years younger." "If having a younger partner does that, I'm getting a toy boy," she teased. "Exercise and eating well help too. But Emma's been my inspiration," I explained. "Well, whatever she's doing, she should keep it up. People were worried about you the last couple of years," Sally said. "Don't worry, Sally. She'll probably go home for the holidays, and I'll be back to my old self," I replied. "If she's smart, she won't leave you alone for long," Sally added with a knowing smile. Over dinner, I asked Emma about her plans for the holidays. "I was going to ask if Harper hires students for holiday work," she said. "We normally hire engineering students. Are you looking for a job?" "I thought you'd go home," I replied, surprised. "I don't think I could handle more than a week with my mother." "I'd rather stay here and work," she explained. Impressed by her determination, I promised to talk to the office manager about any vacancies. Emma's work ethic reminded me how different she was from Liam, who had always avoided work. The next morning, I mentioned it to John, who quickly approved the idea. "We depend on office staff as much as engineers. We should start training them. Do you have someone in mind?" John asked. "Emma was wondering if we take on business trainees," I said. "Tell Mrs. Pritchard to draw up a training scheme for her," John instructed. That summer was bliss. Emma and I spent our days biking through country parks and enjoying each other's company. I loved riding behind her, admiring the way her hips moved. When the university term began, it was hard to let her go. By July, Harper launched its first DSP chip, and the product was an immediate success. We outsourced production but integrated our design into customers' technology, earning a percentage of each chip produced. The strategy boosted our income with minimal overhead, firmly positioning us in the knowledge economy. With my personal life thriving and the company flourishing, there was only one dark spot: Liam. He barely spoke to me except to criticize, and I suspected he believed I was involved in his mother's disappearance. He was serious about a girl and planning to marry, but I'd never met her and doubted I'd even be invited to the wedding. One evening, I overheard Liam's voice raised in anger. "Do you have any idea of the damage you did?" he shouted at Sophia. "I know about the police investigation, but that wasn't my fault," Sophia said defensively. "It was your fault. You disappeared without a word. We were suspicious, and you didn't even contact me to say you were okay," Liam shouted back. "You didn't need me. You moved to London. Your father and I hadn't had a proper relationship for years, which is why he never tried to find me," Sophia retorted. "Of course I needed you. I went into finance because of you. I wanted you to be proud of me, to see my success. But you weren't here," Liam replied, his voice thick with frustration. "You had your father to talk to," Sophia said weakly. "No, I didn't. You destroyed that too. I blamed him for your disappearance. I even thought the police might be right," Liam admitted, his voice breaking. "I hardly spoke to Dad since you left." "Oh, darling, you can't really believe your father killed me," Sophia said, crying. "I didn't know what to believe," Liam said, his voice softening. "I had no one to help me. I even tried to stop him from divorcing you. How could he divorce me without my knowing about it?" Sophia asked, bewildered. The divorce had come during a tough time for me, coinciding with Emma's graduation and the end of our formal arrangement. Guy Pearson handled the legalities well, but my relationship with Emma was another matter. I had fallen deeply in love with her despite our age difference and feared what would happen next. Emma noticed my distraction, but I blamed it on the divorce. I encouraged her job search, wanting the best for her. When she received an offer from KPMG, she rushed to show me the letter. "Adam, I've been offered a job at KPMG in their accountancy division," she said, her excitement evident. "That's fantastic news. After their graduate training, You'll be in high demand, I replied, forcing myself to sound enthusiastic. But it's in London, she said, her voice faltering. You'll enjoy the fast pace and nightlife, I said, deliberately avoiding Emma's eyes. So, you want me to take it? She asked, her voice rising with frustration. I want what's best for you, I replied, trying to maintain my composure. Oh, for God's sake, Adam. Do you want me to go to London? She demanded, tears welling in her eyes. I hesitated, my voice cracking. Our arrangement is ending. You should do what's best for you. Her face crumpled, and she began to sob uncontrollably. Is that all I mean to you? Maybe I should go to London, she cried. I sat beside her on the sofa, putting my arm around her trembling shoulders. Of course, you mean more to me. But I thought you'd want to find a man your own age, to live life fully, I said, tears starting to blur my vision. Adam Carter, you can be so stupid, she said, wiping her face. I don't want a man my own age. I want to get out in the world, yes, but with you. I don't want to leave you. If you want me to go, I will. You'd give up this opportunity just to stay with me? I asked, stunned. You're 48, Adam. That's not old. And I'm in love with you, she said, her voice steadying. Can I move out of the spare room now? Will you take me to bed and show me how much you love me? Overcome, I scooped her up and carried her to the bedroom. We undressed each other slowly, savoring every touch. Afterward, as we lay tangled together, I asked softly, Did you enjoy it? She smiled, brushing her fingers along my jaw. Oh yes, it was unbelievable. How about you? It was amazing, I admitted. But what I love most is the holding and hugging. She kissed me and laughed. How do you always know the sweetest things to say? Getting out of bed, she added. I forgot to tell you. I've had another job offer. It's from the place where I worked during the holidays. Harper offered you a job? He didn't mention it, I said, surprised. Yes, and I think I might take it. The guy running design and development is such a hunk. I could go for him, she teased. You're really going to work at Harper and stay with me? I asked, hardly daring to believe it. I've wanted to stay with you since our first Christmas, she said. And I can't wait for you to be my boss. You could punish me if I did anything wrong, she added with a giggle. For the first time, I felt urgency to finalize my divorce. Guy Pearson assured me he'd handle it, but when he explained that I might need to set aside half my assets for Sophia to claim, I balked. No way, Guy. She abandoned me, left her bank cards, and hasn't been in touch for 3 years. Sorry, Adam, but you'll need to go before the judge, Guy insisted. At county court, I explained our exhaustive efforts to locate Sophia, 3 years of advertising in British and international press, but the judge required another year of ads in European publications. As I left the courthouse, Detective Inspector Reed approached me with his usual smugness. Good morning, Mr. Carter. You've finally given me something, he said. What are you talking about? I asked, irritated. Motive, Mr. Carter. Half your net worth must be a couple £100,000. People have been murdered for less, he stated flatly. The only reason I want my wife to return is so I can watch you apologize for harassing me, I shot back. The file is still open, Mr. Carter. And I'm patient, Reed warned. You'll be waiting a long time, because she's not dead, I retorted, walking off. Over the next year, I advertised in European newspapers without any response from Sophia. At last, the court awarded me a decree nisi, which became absolute 6 weeks later. For the first time in 24 years, I was free. I considered marrying Emma, but we were happy as we were. She was the love of my life, and for the first time, I felt content. The only strain in my life was my relationship with Liam. He had married a woman named Isabella, who worked hard to mend our bond, but it remained a struggle. One day, Liam confronted Sophia. Mother, you didn't expect nothing to change after you deserted us. We've moved on. Dad had to divorce you, he said firmly. But surely I had some say. I was part of the marriage, Sophia argued. You had your say the day you walked out, Liam replied, defending me for the first time since Sophia left. Turning to me, Sophia asked sharply, So, what happened, Adam? How did you manage to divorce me? Liam was right, I said. You did the job yourself by walking out. The court insisted I give you every chance to claim your share. And did you? She pressed. Yes, I replied. I advertised in Le Monde, El País, La Repubblica, and all the British press. When you didn't respond, The court ruled you weren't interested. And what happened to my share? She demanded. The court concluded you abandoned your assets, I explained. There's still thousands of pounds worth of clothes and shoes upstairs. Take them whenever you want. Sophia broke down, sobbing and rocking in her seat. I put 21 years into this marriage, and now I'm left with nothing, she cried. You trapped me in a marriage you gave up on after 11 years, I said, trying to stay calm. Since Liam started private school, you've been dissatisfied with me. You had your share. Just look at the closets. Eventually, Sophia's sobs subsided. I exchanged glances with Liam before gently asking, "Why did you come back, Sophia?" "I was in trouble," Sophia admitted, her voice trembling. "You were right about those people, Adam. They used me. I left with James because he wanted to get at you. Once the police and press lost interest in you, he ditched me. An older man took me to Barbados, but after a couple of years, he replaced me with someone younger. I hitched a ride to Spain and ended up in Malaga with a nice Englishman, who turned out to be a criminal. When things went bad, I ran back to the only place I knew I'd be safe, the only man I've ever loved." She looked at me, her eyes filled with remorse. "And you expected me to welcome you with open arms?" I asked, incredulous. "No," she replied quietly. "I knew you'd be angry, but I hoped we could salvage our marriage. We loved each other once. I hoped I could make you love me again. But now I see there's nothing left to salvage," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, I'm angry," I admitted. "We did love each other once. At least, I loved you. Even though you trapped me into marriage, I still loved you. I would have married you anyway, Sophia. But after you sided with that parasite James against me, I realized I was just a meal ticket to you. After that, I stopped caring about what you did." "Oh, Adam," she whispered. "You were never just a meal ticket. I've loved you since school. Yes, I got pregnant on purpose because I was scared I'd lose you once you got a job. I wanted you to use your abilities better. I looked at men like James and thought, my Adam is smarter than all of them. But you stuck to your principles, working for that small electronics company instead of chasing real money. When I tried to make you see that, you turned your back on me. I tried to get your attention by dating other men, hoping you'd challenge me, but you didn't. So everything was my fault? Even your cheating?" I asked bitterly. "No, Adam. I was wrong," she said, shaking her head. "I thought success was all about money. But it's not. Look at you, still living in the same house, happy. I could have been happy too, if I hadn't obsessed over you becoming a millionaire like we dreamed." Liam, who had been silent until then, let out a laugh. "You really don't know, do you?" he asked, his tone sharp. Sophia frowned. "What don't I know?" "Of course, she doesn't," I said with a small smile, remembering how surreal it had been. No one could have expected it, not even me. It had started when John Harper walked into my office, laying paperwork on my desk. "A large telecom company has made a bid for the company, Adam," he announced. "They're offering way over the market price." I had two immediate questions. Are you going to take it? And what does this have to do with me? John leaned back in his chair, grinning. "The deal depends on you signing a 5-year contract. They know you've generated most of the income and want you to stay. They're offering a huge salary and bonuses." "And are you going to sell?" I asked cautiously. "I'd like to. Wendy and I want to enjoy retirement, and this deal offers an excellent package," John said, then hesitated. "But there's a but." "Of course there is. What is it?" John sighed. "The buyers aren't interested in the production side of the business. They only want the design and development division. They'll likely close or sell off production in a year or two. I've known those workers most of their lives, Adam. I can't do that to them. So you won't sell, and I won't get a banker's salary. I can live with that," I said. "But I don't want to work forever, John. What's the alternative?" "That's where you come in," John said, leaning forward. "You could buy the company." I stared at him, stunned. "John, I don't have that kind of money, and I doubt I could raise it." John waved the bid documents in the air. "These buyers are offering way over market value. If I sell at a fair valuation and keep 15%, the income will top up my pension. The bank has agreed to loan you the rest. Use your house, worth $400,000, and another $100,000 as surety. Once you own 85%, you transfer the debt to the company. The company pays back the bank over time. You won't end up with a mortgage." I felt overwhelmed. "I don't know, John. That's a lot to take on." Think it over. Talk to Emma. The bank will send someone tomorrow at 2 to discuss it, John said, grinning as he left my office. As he passed my PA, Sally, he called out, the future owner of the company could use a coffee. Sally brought me the coffee as I paced the office, trying to process it all. Is it true, Adam? Are you buying the company? She asked, her voice full of excitement. It looks like it, I admitted. I'm so pleased, she said, kissing me on the cheek. Everyone's been worried about what would happen when John retires. Don't say anything yet, Sally. Wait until the deal is confirmed, I cautioned. That evening, I discussed everything with Emma. She confirmed John's plan was solid. It's not free money, she explained, but it protects you if the company fails. That year, 2 major events changed my life. I got divorced and became the owner of the company I'd worked for. When John announced the sale, the shop floor erupted into cheers. Many employees shook my hand, relieved their jobs were secure. So what's so funny? Sophia asked Liam, annoyed by his smirk. You keep going on about Dad not being a millionaire, Liam said, unable to hide his amusement. Liam, there's no need for that, I interjected. It's true, Dad. If she wanted you to be a millionaire, she should have stuck around, Liam replied, his tone cutting. Sophia's eyes widened. Are you saying your father, who still works for that tin pot electronics company, is wealthy? She asked, incredulous. Liam couldn't resist. First of all, that company is a leader in the knowledge economy, selling know-how worldwide, he said with a grin. Second, Liam said, fixing Sophia with a pointed look, he doesn't work for Harper Electronics. He owns it. He's a millionaire, at least on paper. Sophia froze, visibly shocked, her mouth slightly open. She turned to me after a long pause. But you still live in this house. Why? You could afford something better, she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. The house suits me fine. I don't need anything bigger, I replied calmly. And you still drive that old Skoda? She pressed. No, I said with a faint smile. I drive a Jag now. Liam stood and, for the first time in over 6 years, hugged me. I'm sorry, Dad. If the invitation's still open, I'll see you tomorrow. Isabella was planning to come anyway. Of course it's still open, but you've blown your chance of being best man, I joked. We laughed together, and I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. Are you going to be okay with her? He asked, nodding toward Sophia. I'll be fine, I assured him. After he left, I went back inside and found Sophia wandering through the house, inspecting it. She picked up a photo of me with Emma. Who's the girl, Adam? She asked. That's Emma. Emma Collins, I replied. I don't think I know any Collins, Sophia said, frowning. No, you don't, I confirmed. From the photo, she scrutinized Emma. She looks like your girlfriend. She's not my girlfriend, I said, hesitating. She's my partner. Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief. Adam, have you gone mad? She looks young enough to be your daughter. After my divorce from Sophia, I hadn't been in a hurry to marry again. Emma and I had never felt the need for formalities. We lived like a married couple, and without children, there didn't seem to be any urgency. Life with Emma was blissful. Money wasn't a concern, and we were happy. But one evening, Emma surprised me. Adam, would you like us to have a baby? She asked, catching me completely off guard. I hadn't thought about it. Don't you think I'm too old for that? I asked cautiously. No, you're young for your age, and I want a family, she said with quiet conviction. I got out of bed and paced the room. I don't want to bring fatherless babies into the world, I said honestly. When I glanced at her, I saw her face fall and tears welling up in her eyes. I knelt beside her. Emma, I said softly, will you marry me? She looked puzzled at first, but then her expression changed to one of pure joy. You mean we can start a family? She asked, her voice filled with hope. Only once we're married. So, will you marry me? I repeated. Yes, you know I will, she said, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks as she pulled me back into bed. The next day, we went to a jeweler's to pick out a ring. Emma tried to involve her mother in the wedding planning, but despite an apology, Karen still believed the lies from the Post and couldn't get past her biases. Michael, on the other hand, was thrilled and offered his full support. Emma puzzled me when she delayed setting a wedding date for weeks. Then she presented me with a document listing all my assets and asked me to sign a prenuptial agreement. Why a prenup? I challenged her. What do you have to protect? Nothing, Adam. But you do. I want people to know I'm marrying you for love, not money. If we break up, I don't want anything I didn't contribute, she said firmly. I'm not having it. What's mine is yours. I love you, I said, trying to dismiss the matter. That's why I want this, Adam. I don't care what people think, but I need to do this. If we don't, I can't marry you, she insisted. Reluctantly, I agreed. After signing the agreement, Emma finally set the date. Liam, predictably, accused Emma of being after my money. When I asked him to be my best man, he laughed and doubted he'd even attend the wedding. John Harper eagerly accepted the role instead. Sophia, surprisingly, reappeared right before the wedding. Emma is 24, we're in love, and I'm marrying her tomorrow, I told her firmly. So it's true. There's no fool like an old fool, she sneered. A pretty young woman wants to marry you because you're wealthy. She's after your money. If Emma were a gold digger, she's had plenty of time to trap me. We've been together for over 5 years. The prenuptial agreement was her idea, I explained. And if she leaves, she won't be better off than when we met. Sophia sat back, defeated. I've been a fool, Adam. I know that now. I'm sorry. Stop it. I don't hate you, Sophia, and I never have. I'll help you, but I'll expect something in return, I said firmly. After explaining my plan, I made a few phone calls. First, I booked Sophia into a hotel. Then I called Michael Collins. Michael, I need a favor, I began, outlining my idea. On the wedding day, everything went smoothly. Guests arrived, including Karen, thanks to Michael's persuasion. Emma was stunned to see her mother in the front row. How did you get my mother here? She whispered as she reached my side at the altar. I'll tell you later, I whispered back. The ceremony went off without a hitch. At the reception, I made my speech, thanking everyone for coming. Then, I added, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sophia, my ex-wife. She has come a long way to be here today. The press swarmed her, but I quickly intervened. This is Emma's and my wedding. Please respect our celebration. Mr. Harper will provide Sophia's contact details later. The hall was filled with murmurs of surprise, but the mood quickly returned to normal. That night, Emma and I retired to our suite. She emerged from the bathroom wearing a white lace basque, stockings, and her wedding shoes, holding a small packet in her hand. She kissed me and tossed the contraceptive pills into the bin. Okay, Mr. Carter, let's make babies, she said, her eyes sparkling. Sure, Mrs. Carter, I replied, pulling her close. Life after that was everything I could have hoped for. Emma and I had 2 children, and Liam's kids were close in age, making family gatherings lively. Isabella helped mend my relationship with Liam, though his bond with Sophia remained strained. Sophia eventually remarried a wealthy older man, and Emma's parents moved closer to be near their grandchildren. I'm now as happy as I've ever been. With a loving wife, 3 children, and a son who works with me, life feels full. The younger kids think I'm a superhero, and honestly, I sometimes feel like one. Life has been eventful, and may it continue to be so.